Hey everybody, welcome back to Battle Ready Inc. So this week's deck profile for you, we've got Armor Rush with the new Magnamon X support. So this deck had a ton of gas previously, but it never really had much in the way of defensive options outside of like blocker Magnamon. But with Magnamon X, they really just takes this deck to another level. Super good. Really happy with it. Also with decks like Yellow Hybrid out of the mix, there's not a whole lot of just DP reduction going on everywhere anymore, so it can really flourish in this new meta. Also, just wanted to show off this memory marker here. This is a commission that I commissioned my wife for. Magnamon, or not Magnamon, Gaiomon's helmet here. Very cool. This will not be mass produced. However, if you would like to place a custom commission order, you can do so through our Etsy page. Just message the seller, and then you can go ahead and put in a commission for any sort of memory marker you want. And then prices will vary based on complexity. Something like this on the higher end, about $30, but some of our other stuff on the lower end can be as little as $10. So just gotta go on there and find out whatever you're trying to request for. You can find that as well as all of our other previous memory markers on our Etsy page if you want to get any sort of ideas for anything like that, as well as some of our Battle Ready Inc. merch. Alright, so I've got the whole deck pulled up for you guys as always, so you can just kind of see everything and follow along with us without having to skip around, so that way things will help make a little bit more sense. We changed up some ratios from what you saw in the feature match at the beginning of the week, or if you didn't watch that, then you'll just be along for the ride here. Just some stuff that was a little too heavy there, I definitely needed to be dropped down a little bit, and some other stuff that's really powerful needed to be bumped up a couple cards. So we'll just go do this card by card here. We got Upamon here. I still think it's one of the best babies. This deck is all about just like being super like gas heavy. You want to go as fast as possible and win as fast as possible before your opponent can set up. And to do something like that, you need as much draw power to get into all these like really powerful combos as quickly as possible. Upamon is fantastic for getting you some draw power. The blue Jaumon also pretty good as well, giving all of your armors 1000 DP, all of your level 4s, gets that 1000 DP buff, kind of helps them stay on the field, and a little bit more staying power, a little bit better there. Very good stuff. Next though, for our first rookie, I've got Jamming Vmon, which is always super strong. One of the best Vmons you can have for the deck. Just being able to go something like Fire Rocket and swing in. If you have to do that armor purge on the first check, you still have your jamming for the second check. And so then you can keep your Vmon around, and that way then you can go into a new armor and potentially unsuspend that jamming Vmon, and then swing again and do the whole combo repeatedly. So definitely a very powerful target for sure to Evo on top of. Next up, we've got our Searcher Vmon. This is the starter deck one. Reveal 3, add 1 with free in its type. So that's going to be most of the things. You notice we have the 2-color Searcher all the way down to a 2 of, simply because this one also adds our Vmons, because our Vmons are all free types. So if you don't reveal a duo color, you can still at least add a Vmon, so you still get some sort of search power. I just like this one a little bit more. Where this Searcher comes in a little bit more handy is if you're playing something like the duo color removal option, right, where you can add that, or the Tamer, or anything like that. It's a little bit more open than not just Digimon. So, but we still got this one in here simply because it's still a solid Searcher as well for those situations where maybe you don't need a Vmon, right? You just desperately need an armor. An armor is so much more important, so you want this top 4 rather than top 3 simply because of that. So save this one for those kind of those little more niche searches. Then we got the EX1 Vmon. So this is the one when you unsuspend, you gain 1 memory. Super strong. So when you go armor texture and you evo into a new armor, and you unsuspend with that, you essentially reduce the evo cost from 2 down to 1. That's really strong, as well as like your Magnamons, just reducing those effects as well, just all the time. This is a fantastic playmaker for sure. If you're just going to go into these like super hyper aggressive turns where you're going to get multiple armor evos onto the same Digimon, this Vmon is a really good one to do that. And then just kind of rounding out the list, I do still have this starter deck 8 Vmon. This one, when you attack inheritable, if you have 7 or less, you draw one. Really, really fantastic early game piece. Like I was talking about with the Upamon, just that draw power is super solid. I think my original list, I didn't have the duo color Searcher Vmon, and I was just running 4 of this Vmon, and it still worked out great for me. At a 4 of, you have a much higher chance of seeing it early game, whereas a 2 of, maybe you do, maybe you don't. You know, it's just you never really know. 4 of kind of guarantees you see it a little bit earlier in the match rather than later. But it's very much a personal preference. Like I said, if you want to go all Searcher Vmons here with the duo color Searcher, you know, maybe you want to change up your option, your removal option to run that duo color one. Well, I'll get into why I don't run that duo color one when we get there. But yeah, that's just 2 different ones you could go with here. Either one's fine, or you can do a 2-2 split, whatever works for you. But I think these other 3 are very much mandatory 4 ofs each. They're fantastic. Next is our armor lineup. Pretty much all self-explanatory. Lydramon here, 2 Evo costs. I mean, the whole premise of armors, like, we should know by now what the point is. So you're just gonna max out on all these guys. The Lydramon, suspend those blockers that are in your way, those level 4 blockers, and then you can go ahead and swing past them. You know, that's really, really good, especially in this deck where, you know, blockers can really be annoying, so getting rid of blockers out of your way is very good. Flame Dramon here, just gaining that 3k when you attack in. Super strong. If you saw the feature match, there's plenty of times where we were able to crash with their level 5s before they could get into their mega, and then just delete their whole level 5, and then we armor purge away, and then still have our Vmon there that we could then Evo on top of. Very nice. And of course we got the Magnamon here. Got that blocker. Unsuspends himself, so if you swing in with something and you armor purge, then you just Evo into a Magnamon to pass turn. It unsuspends, so they can't just swing over it. It's got blocker if you need to use the blocker. Very multifaceted card, very, very strong. Huge fan of Magnamon, and I actually just like the regular art a little bit more. Just I like the gold color that they used here, rather than the orangey gold of the alt art. But that alt art, really big, really looks fantastic too, though. Next, we got Magnamon X Antibody. So if you're not familiar with this one, you can Digivolve for 4 on top of a Magnamon. So you're level 4 there, you can Evo this level 6 directly on top of it. Or this the option card here, Armor of the Golden Knight, or Awakening of the Golden Knight. You can Evo this guy on top of any of your armors with that card. So just kind of keep that in mind when looking at this guy. Opponent's turn. When an opponent's Digimon attacks, if a card with armor form in its traits or X antibody is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, you may switch the target of attack to this Digimon. So that's it's like blocker on crack, right? So you can absorb any attack you want. You don't have to suspend. If you want to absorb 3 attacks, you can do that. If you want to do every other attack, you can do that. You just pick whatever you want, and they have to attack. If they choose to attack, they have to choose. You can choose if they attack Magnamon X or not. That's just fantastic. Super, super good. Just hold off your whole opponent's field of everything that they have going. Very, very, very strong. And then if they ever do get over this guy, all turns when this Digimon would be deleted, you may place the top card of this Digimon on the top of your security stack face down to prevent that deletion. So that's really also key, important, prevent that deletion. Same with Armor Purge. If you prevent that deletion, then stuff like Piercing won't go off, right? Or if they have an ability like Black War Greymon, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, unsuspend. If you Armor Purge away, they don't get that, okay? They don't get to unsuspend because the Armor Purge type of ability prevents deletion. So the Digimon doesn't actually get deleted. And that's essentially what you're doing here. You're going to just Armor Purge away, which then this guy just goes into security rather than into the trash. So good. And if you have like a Magnamon underneath it that's unsuspended, you still have your blocker after that. Like, very, very powerful defensive card. We originally had this at a 4 of, but I found it to be a little unnecessary. Like, the point of this deck is to just go super heavy on the gas, and you just want to win as fast as possible. And only time you should really be throwing out a Magnamon X is if you're, like, up against the wall, like, starting to lose a little bit. So I've seen this guy ran as little as 2 copies, which, I get it. If you just need to see it by like mid-game and just to have one in hand whenever the time comes, to slam it down. I get it. But I just went ahead and ran it at a 3 of. Still feels pretty comfortable for me. But yeah, So, and then of course the Awakening of the Gold Knight to go with it. Like I said, if you have an armor in play, you can digivolve one of your Digimon of armor form and its traits into a card with Magnamon in its name in your hand, ignoring its Digivolution requirements and without paying its memory costs. So, yeah, really strong there. 3 play cost, essentially making his 4 Evo, even on top of Magnamon, a little bit cheaper. And then security effect, return one of your card with Magnamon in its name from your trash to your hand, and add this card to your hand. So you can add a regular Magnamon to your hand from your trash, or a Magnamon X. So either one that security effect works for. So just a couple of these, again, same premise. You know, you only need this card in those dire situations where you're starting to lose and you got to do something to prevent your loss. That's where I think 2 of these is still pretty solid. Even if it ends up in security, it goes to your hand. So either way, you're in a very good position with this card. So just the 2 felt like plenty to me. Again, it's kind of the same premise with the Magnamon X here. 1 or 2 or 3 is fine. Of course, we have the 1 of Ice Wall, because it's just a stupid strong card. Every time this card is played, it just feels so bad. It's so frustrating to have to work around this. And then we got the 3 Hammer Sparks. I do really like running 4 in most decks I play. And in this deck, just having those Hammer Sparks to just have those crazy good turns where you have like the Fire Rocket and you attack like twice, and you cleared your opponent's 4 security, and then you want a little bit of extra memory. You need that Hammer Spark to just go into another armor. Yeah, you can have some pretty bananas turns, just extending your plays between the Vmon memory gain and the Hammer Spark memory gain. Great stuff. And then both of these cards in security are just absolute bangers. Gain 2 memory, super strong. Like originally when this deck didn't have Magnamon X, like these were kind of your only defensive options that could be in the deck, right? You'd have Magnamon blocker, or you just prayed there was something good in your security. Hammer Sparks, Ice Walls, that sort of thing. But now that we have Magnamon X, the need for 4 Hammer Spark is a little bit less in that regard. We also have the Fire Rocket here. I have it down to a 3 of. I really want to fit it in as a 4 of. But the deck is actually surprisingly pretty tight. Like if I was to cut any card, maybe the Magnamon X down to 2 and then bump this up to a 4, just being able to give any of your armors +1 security for 1 memory. Like 1 memory to give security attack +1 is very, very efficient. Better than plugins. Plugins only being a 2 cost. Like this being a 1 cost is very, very strong. So memory fixer, Evo for 2, 1 of your armors, and then play a Fire Rocket for 1. Bring yourself down to 0, then attack. Yeah, you see the value there for sure. And then the Awakening of the Gold Knight, we already talked about. Security effect, Fire Rocket. Delete one of your opponent's Digimon with blocker. This almost never comes up in this format anymore, because a lot of stuff is blocker, like Black War Greymon. The inheritable of the Black Greymon is gains blocker on your opponent's turn, so it doesn't actually, like the Fire Rocket doesn't actually hit it because it's during their turn. Yeah, it's frustrating. It is what it is though, but it's still a very, very powerful card either way. Next, I got 2 Davis in here. Originally, I was running 3, but the Duo Tamer, I think for Armor Rush specifically, is so powerful, rather than something like, if I was running Imperial, then I would swap these the other way, because in that, you really want to search for cards and combo pieces and evoing into duo colors like the normal way instead of through DNA. It's a little bit different. So the Davis here for the search, as well as the memory fix. The memory fix is solid, but not like an absolute must-have necessity. Whereas like something Imperial, you need to be at 3, so that way you can hard play the Stingmon for 3 and then DNA with. Whereas this, as long as you can get yourself up to 2 memory, you can still pop off pretty well with your armors. And then speaking of all of our armors here, we have the Davis and Ken Duo. Fantastic card. So if you have a blue in play at the start of your main phase, gain 1 memory. If you have a green in play, gain 1 memory. Then your turn, when one of your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon of 2 or more colors, you may suspend this Tamer to unsuspend that Digimon. A fantastic playmaker. If you don't have the armor texture, or say they die in the security check, then you can Evo and then unsuspend with these guys. If they live, you can use the armor texture and essentially do the same thing there. And if they die on that check, then you can go into the Ken and Davis. Just a fantastic card for this deck. So I really like this one as our bigger of our Tamers here. So 3 of this one instead instead of the memory fixer, just because, yeah, we don't need as much memory gain in here. It is nice, but it's not like a must-have necessity. Honestly, the unsuspend of the duo color is 100% more powerful than the other way. And then, of course, we do have the armor texture. If you have an armor, you can play this ignoring its color, just like all of our armor abilities. And then trash the top card of one of your Digimon with armor form and its traits. Then you may Digivolve one of your Digimon into a Digimon card in your hand with armor form and its traits. For its Digivolution cost, if you do unsuspend that Digimon. So I was talking about it's really, really powerful because you can unsuspend when you do that and then swing again. So as long as you got the memory to evo into that armor, you can keep attacking. That's very, very strong. Security effects, also not bad. You may play one level 3 Digimon card with free and its trait from your hand or trash without paying its memory cost. So that's all of your VMons here. You can play any of them. And if they've got on-play effects, you get their on-play effects here. That's really solid, being able to get those really, really timely searches off. I mean, a well-timed armor texture and security can literally win you the game. I've seen it happen. The opponent's like, all right, I'm just going to clear your security out, and then next turn I'll be set up to win. You've got nothing on field, nothing in a raising area. I'm good. I've won. I'm just going to go ahead and clear this, and then I'll be fine. And then they hit into an armor texture, and it plays out a VMon, and that VMon searches an armor, and then they just go ham on you. And you're like, well, okay, armor texture literally won you the game. Very strong card. And the last card I've got in here is 2 Kikaitis Breath. So this is I think this is the biggest flex spot in the deck. You can run a removal if you want. You don't have to. If Magnamon X is good enough for defensive options for you, and you don't need anything else, then drop this. Add in another Fire Rocket. Add in another Hammer Spark, Give your deck a little bit more gas, so that way you don't have to worry about needing to be defensive. But I've just really found that having a removal can be super, super clutch at times. So I've just got the 2 Kikaitis in here, just if they promote up something, like they don't have the memory to go into their grandest play, but they're just going to go ahead and set it up on field, bounce that, or they go into like a Susanomon, they send all their materials and stuff back into the deck, so they can't go into a second Susano even if it's in their hand. Bounce that one to hand. Then they don't have that 3 security check beast coming at you, right? Another big problem, if you saw the feature match, Black War Greymon is a menace against this deck. Between the de-digi-evolving, the blocker on the Greymons, it's so frustrating to deal with that deck. So bouncing something to hand with Kikaitis and then they lose that blocker inheritable, very, very strong. Also, losing the Metal Greymon that lets them attack unsuspended Digimon, also very, very good to get rid of that. So I really like Kikaitis for bouncing stuff like that. You could go with something like, I believe it's V-Wing Blade, that's a 6 play cost, and it bounces level 6 and belows. Again, the only thing I don't like about that is you can't target level 7s. Granted, this format isn't too level 7 heavy, but there is stuff like Alphamon running around, so being able to bounce the Aoryuken, if the Aoryuken hits this in security before they can do that big purge of all that stuff, bouncing that and sending that whole stack to trash, oh my god, mwah, so strong. So I really like the Kikaitis just for that. You could use that duo color one as well, but I always run into the issue of I don't ever have the green on field to be able to activate it. If they ever like turbo into something way faster, then you can get that duo tamer on the field. It feels bad. Maybe a Lydramon, maybe if you're lucky. I've just had it be too much of an issue where I need that guarantee right now in this exact moment or I'll lose, and I don't have the green set up, and I'm just like, no, what do I do? And where Kikaitis just works, okay? Kikaitis just works. It just gets the job done no matter what. It's just a guarantee in any situation at all times, and so that's why I went with the Kikaitis, just for that sure thing, less gambly, just get the job done sort of thing. And that is the deck there. Not really a whole lot of wiggle room for other cards that you could run. Like I said, maybe the Xiaomon, if you want to run a 5th egg, which, depending on the format, might be something you could look at. But everything else in here, like, this is it. Like, these are the cards you run. There's not really anything else in this game that you can run. Only at most, the thing you can do is, like, change some ratios around here and there on a couple things. Maybe drop the Kikaitis if you want. But then everything else, you're going to run these cards, basically. So it's all about ratios. Hopefully I explained why I chose these ratios well enough for you so that it made sense.